Voiceover begins. Have you ever wondered what a single act of kindness can do? If I don't wake up, will anyone miss me? The whisper broke the stillness of the pediatric cardiac ward like a sharp breeze slipping through a crack in the window. Maya Henderson paused, tray of evening meds in one hand, the other already reaching for the soft blue curtain drawn around bed 14. Her eyes narrowed. She had heard worry in many forms: restless cries, tense breathing, even children talking in their sleep. But this voice carried something heavier, something final. She pushed the curtain gently aside. There lay Sophie Crane, small and fragile against the hospital bed's white sheets. The faint beeping of the heart monitor echoed in the space like a ticking clock. Her fingers clutched the edge of the blanket, her wide, intelligent eyes staring up at the ceiling like they saw something beyond it. Maya set the tray down and knelt beside her. "Hey, sweet pea," she said softly. "What was that you just said?" Sophie's eyes flicked to her, hesitant. I heard one of the nurses say the surgery tomorrow is very risky," she whispered. "What if I don't wake up? What if I go away and no one even remembers me?" Maya's heart tensed. "Oh, baby," she said, brushing a stray lock of golden hair from the girl's forehead. "Of course someone will remember you. Your doctors, the nurses, me." Sophie bit her lip. "Even if you don't know me very well." Maya hesitated, then smiled gently. "Sometimes it doesn't take long to care about someone. Sometimes it just happens." She paused, then added, "Can I ask you something?" Sophie nodded. Maya took a breath. "Do you think your daddy loves you?" The question hung there, still and delicate, and in the silence that followed, the door handle turned. Nicholas Crane stepped in just as his daughter answered quietly. "I think he used to when Mommy was alive, but now he's always so busy. He talks to his phone more than he talks to me." The words struck him like ice water to the chest. He froze in place, elegant coat still on, briefcase slung in hand, Bluetooth headset tucked behind his collar. For the first time in months, maybe longer, he actually saw his daughter not as a patient to check on before returning to emails, but as a child, his child, lonely, unsure, unspoken. He blinked slowly, gaze drifting toward the dark-skinned nurse kneeling beside Sophie, her hands warm and sure, her expression full of concern. For a moment, something ugly stirred inside him, a knee-jerk discomfort, a whisper of the old voice he'd inherited from cold boardrooms and colder family dinners. "She's not like us," but the truth swept over him faster. "She's done more for Sophie in 10 minutes than I've managed in 6 months. He cleared his throat. Maya looked up, caught in the moment. "Mr. Crane, good evening." Nicholas composed himself. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice measured, but not cold. "Yes, sir," Maya replied. "She just needed someone to talk to." Nicholas nodded, stepping closer. "That's good. Thank you." His voice was stiff. He had never been good at showing gratitude. Sophie looked up at him. "Daddy." Maya gave me a hug. That simple statement twisted something in him. Maya stood. She was scared. I stayed a bit longer to help her rest. Nicholas looked at the nurse, really looked. She was young, maybe late 20s, dressed in sensible sneakers and a slightly faded scrub top. Her name tag hung just a bit off center, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Nothing remarkable at first glance, but there was something in her eyes, not pity, not duty, genuine. He nodded almost awkwardly. "I appreciate that." Maya hesitated. Then she said, "Wait here a second." She slipped out of the room and returned with a small object clutched in both hands. It was a cloth-bodied doll, worn, one button eye missing. The remaining one stitched back on with thick thread. Its once pink dress faded to a gentle cream. Yet despite its age, it seemed to radiate warmth. "This is Daisy," Maya said, kneeling beside Sophie again. "She's been mine since I was your age. She's been through a lot with me. I think she might help you sleep." Sophie blinked, unsure. "But she's yours." Maya smiled gently. "And now she can be yours, too, just for tonight." Sophie hugged the doll tightly. She smells like hugs. Nicholas turned his face away, not fast enough. Maya stood, brushing her knees. Good night, sweetheart. She walked past Nicholas on the way out. As she did, he said quietly, That doll, did it belong to your mom? Maya paused. It did. I grew up in foster care. It's the only thing I kept. He looked at her then. Really? Why give it away? She glanced back at Sophie, now fast asleep, breathing slow and peaceful. Because she needed it more than I did, Maya said simply. Nicholas nodded once. His eyes didn't leave his daughter. When Maya left the room, she did so quietly, leaving behind more than a doll. She had left a question ringing in Nicholas's mind. When did I stop showing up for her? And in that pause, that breath between two choices, the first crack in his carefully constructed wall appeared. What if one small gesture could change everything? Maya returned to the break room, poured a cup of coffee gone cold, and sat with her thoughts. Her hands felt empty, but her chest felt full. Maybe love is what you do, she thought, not what you keep. And down the hallway in bed 14, Sophie held Daisy to her chest and whispered just before sleep took her. She smells like hugs and safety. And for the first time in months, Sophie dreamed of being held. Sometimes all it takes is a simple act of kindness to remind someone they're not alone. If this story touched your heart, tell us where you're watching from and who you're watching with. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, BUP Stories. And if you believe in the power of compassion and second chances, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul. Because sometimes love is what you give, not what you keep. The vending machine in the nurse's lounge made a worrying noise, then dropped a lukewarm cup of black coffee into the tray with a thud. Maya wrapped her fingers around the cup, letting the heat seep into her cold hands. Her shift was only halfway through, but her chest ached like she'd run a marathon. Giving Daisy away had left her with a strange hollowness, like she'd donated a piece of her soul. She sank into the old leather couch near the window, pulling her knees close, the coffee untouched. Outside, Los Angeles dozed beneath a thin fog. The blinking red tail lights of late-night traffic crawled like veins of light through the city. Somewhere down there, people were laughing in diners, sharing stories over beers, falling asleep in warm beds. She blinked slowly, then reached into her side pocket for her small voice recorder. It was old, probably a decade out of date, but reliable. She clicked it on, lifted it close to her lips, and whispered softly, "Night shift log. The 12th of December, 12:34 a.m. AOA. Today I gave Daisy away." She closed her eyes. I didn't plan to. I just saw the fear in Sophie's eyes and something in me broke. Maybe it was because I saw myself there years ago. I remember that cold silence when no one came to visit. The way night seemed longer when you had no one waiting for you. I couldn't let her feel that. Another pause. She smells like hugs, Maya murmured, then laughed softly. That's what Sophie said. And for the first time in a long time, I think Daisy might have done her job. She clicked the recorder off, set it on the couch beside her, and leaned her head back, but her body remained alert. No matter how many shifts she pulled, she never quite learned how to relax inside these walls. Hospitals were places of miracles, but also of endings. You learned to never breathe too deeply. The door creaked open, and the steady click of polished shoes filled the quiet. Maya opened her eyes to find Dr. Marta Hernandez standing in the doorway, clutching a folder to her chest and a cup of her own coffee in hand. Her salt and pepper hair was tied back into a loose braid, and her eyes, tired but sharp, studied Maya with the practiced concern of someone who had been watching others for decades. "You look like someone who just gave away their last lucky charm," Marta said, settling into the armchair opposite her. Maya offered a weak smile. "More like my last piece of home." "You gave it to the crane girl?" Maya nodded. "She needed it," she added softly. Marta sipped her coffee. "She needed a heart. You gave her a soul." "Not many nurses would do that." Maya shrugged. "I don't know. I didn't think. I just acted." "That's often when we're most human," Marta said gently. We forget about ourselves for just long enough to do something truly meaningful. They sat in silence for a while. The low hum of fluorescent lights overhead was the only noise. Then Marta leaned forward. You know who her father is, right? Maya raised an eyebrow. CEO. Some biotech company. Crane Medtech. They fund half the cardiac research in the state. He's powerful and difficult. Maya nodded slowly. He didn't seem unkind. Just disconnected. Marta smiled faintly. That's generous. Most just call him cold. He heard Sophie say she wasn't sure he loved her anymore, Maya said. He walked in right at that moment. And he didn't yell, didn't defend himself. He just looked like someone had kicked him in the gut. Maybe he needed to hear it, Marta murmured. Maya wrapped her hands tighter around the coffee cup. I just hope it wasn't too late. Marta gave her a look full of something like respect. You don't just give away your doll. You give people a second chance, without them even realizing it. Maya smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. An hour later, back in the ward, she walked quietly past the glass panel doors. The hall smelled faintly of antiseptic and peppermint. The cleaners had just finished their sweep. At bed 14, Sophie was fast asleep, one hand curled around Daisy, the other tucked under her chin. Maya stood there for a moment, watching. Then she turned and almost bumped into him. Nicholas Crane. He was dressed down now, coat off, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked younger this way, less like a titan of industry, more like a tired single dad trying to stay afloat. I'm sorry, Maya said, stepping back. No, my fault, he replied quickly. Then after a beat, she's sleeping peacefully. She's strong, Maya said, but scared. Nicholas nodded, then looked through the glass. She told me once that Mommy used to hold her hand all night, he said quietly. I haven't done that. Not once since the funeral. Maya said nothing. I thought being strong meant showing no emotion. That if I just worked harder, donated more, built more labs, I could somehow protect her from the pain. He looked at Maya then, eyes softer. But I missed it, didn't I? The real stuff. The bedtime fears. The hugs that smell like lavender. Maya didn't correct him. He smiled just barely. She called you Mommy tonight. Did you know? Maya's breath caught. She was half asleep. I think she thought I was someone else. No, Nicholas said. I think she saw someone who made her feel safe. That's more than I've managed lately. He stepped back, adjusting the cuff of his sleeve. Thank you, he said, and for the first time, it didn't sound like obligation. It sounded like truth. As he walked away, Maya turned back to Sophie. The little girl stirred slightly in her sleep, and the doll fell to one side. Maya adjusted it gently, brushing a thumb across the fraying edge of the old cloth arm. She's in good hands now, she whispered. And this time, she wasn't just talking about the doll. The morning came in a gentle gray, filtered through the blinds of the cardiac ward. Rain pattered lightly on the windows, rare for Los Angeles in December, and just enough to quiet the city's constant buzz. Inside room 14, Sophie Crane stirred under the warm weight of the hospital blanket. Daisy still cradled tightly in her arms. Maya stood just outside, sipping from a new cup of coffee, eyes fixed on the child who had unknowingly unstitched something long closed in her heart. She hadn't slept. She rarely did on back-to-back shifts. But this time was different. Her mind wouldn't stop echoing the words Sophie had whispered in the dark, not just fear, grief. Grief for a mother lost and for a father still present but far away. As if sensing the weight of Maya's thoughts, Sophie turned her head and blinked up at her. Maya, she said, voice raspy from sleep. Maya stepped inside, smiling softly. Hey, sunshine, you're up early. Daisy kept the monsters away, Sophie said, holding the doll aloft like a trophy. Maya laughed lightly, coming to sit beside her. She's good at that. Sophie studied her, eyes narrowing. You look tired. Maya shrugged. Long night. Did you miss your doll? Sophie asked quietly. Maya's throat tightened. A little, but seeing you smile, that helped. Sophie nodded solemnly. I can give her back. Just until you're not sad. No, baby, Maya said quickly, gently brushing Sophie's hair. She's yours now, and I think you're just what she needed, too. The door opened behind them and Nicholas stepped in carrying a small tray with 2 drinks and a wrapped muffin. I didn't know what kind of coffee you liked, he said to Maya, awkwardly offering one of the cups. So, I guessed. Maya blinked, surprised. She accepted it, glancing down at the label. Cinnamon oat milk latte. Lucky guess, she said, raising an eyebrow. He gave a tight smile. Or maybe I asked Marta. Sophie giggled from the bed. Daddy, you don't even know what you drink. Last week, you took a sip of tomato soup, thinking it was coffee. Nicholas winced dramatically. You'll never let that go, will you? Maya laughed, tension in the room melting slightly. But the moment didn't last long. A sharp knock came from the doorway. It was Nurse Shelley from admin, clipboard in hand and eyes set firm. Maya knew that look, it had always meant protocol. Maya, may I speak with you outside, she said. Maya glanced once at Sophie, then at Nicholas, before rising and stepping into the hallway. Shelley didn't wait. There's been a concern raised regarding your extended time with patient Crane outside of your scheduled hours. Maya's chest clenched. Concern from who? It doesn't matter, Shelley replied crisply. We've had reports that your relationship with the patient may be crossing professional lines, gifts, personal bonding. Some of your colleagues believe it's becoming emotionally inappropriate. Maya's jaw tightened. I gave a scared little girl comfort. That's called care. We understand, Shelley said less harshly now, but policies exist for a reason. You may need to be reassigned temporarily. Maya felt as if someone had knocked the air out of her. I'm not abandoning that child in the middle of her recovery, she said, voice shaking. Shelley frowned. This isn't punishment, it's precaution. Nicholas had stepped into the hall without either of them noticing. His eyes narrowed as he listened. She stays, he said simply. Shelley turned, startled. Mr. Crane, she's not going anywhere, he repeated, voice calm but absolute. My daughter hasn't smiled like that in 6 months. She hasn't slept through the night. Maya stays. But sir, this is a hospital matter. Nicholas took a step forward. Then let's make it a donor matter. Crane Medtech is reviewing our funding partners next quarter. I'd hate for bureaucratic rigidity to influence our decision. Shelley paled, nodded sharply, and left without another word. Maya stared at him. You didn't have to do that. He shrugged. I didn't do it for you. She tilted her head, challenging. No. He exhaled. Okay, maybe I did, but mostly for her. Back inside the room, Sophie watched them return with wide eyes. Is everything okay? She asked. Nicholas nodded. Better than okay. Maya sat down again. Sophie leaned over and whispered. Daddy doesn't usually fight for people. Maya smiled. Maybe he just needed a reason. Later that day, while Nicholas was taking a call outside, and Maya was finishing her chart notes at the desk, a young intern nurse approached her. You're the one who gave the doll, the intern said softly. Maya turned, surprised. I guess that's me. The intern looked nervous. Some of the others, they don't get it, but I do. My sister had cancer when we were little. One nurse gave her a snow globe she'd kept from childhood. It made my sister believe she had magic inside her. Maya smiled, her voice low. Sometimes that's all we need, a little magic. The intern hesitated, then asked, why did you keep Daisy all this time? Maya looked down the hall at room 14. Because when I was Sophie's age, no one told me I was worth remembering. Daisy was the only one who stayed. The intern's eyes glistened. Thank you for reminding me why I became a nurse. That night, as Maya walked to her car beneath the misty glow of the hospital lights, she looked back once through the window of Sophie's room. There, tucked beneath her arm, Daisy remained, one eye missing, smile a little crooked, but safe, loved. Maya pressed a hand to her chest, not grief, not regret, connection. And just before she turned away, she whispered into the dark, "Sleep well, little one. You're not alone anymore." The pediatric ward had quieted into its usual late-evening rhythm, monitors humming like lullabies, nurses speaking in softened tones, the occasional shuffle of sneakers on polished linoleum. Maya moved with the ease of someone who knew the rhythm well. But that night, every step felt heavier. The earlier confrontation with Shelley still clung to her like static, no matter how composed she tried to appear. She'd returned to her duties, but eyes followed her differently now. She caught the glances, quick looks exchanged between nurses in the break room, the forced silence when she entered a conversation halfway. It wasn't hostility, not yet, but it was something just as isolating, quiet judgment. As she walked past the staff lounge, she overheard it. Two nurses from the surgical unit standing near the vending machine. "She's lucky." Crane stepped in, one muttered. "Lucky or smart," the other replied. "You think it's just about the kid?" Maya's footsteps slowed. "I mean, come on. She gives the girl a doll and suddenly she's the heart of the story. Give me a break. She's got him wrapped around her finger. Look at him now, hovering like a dad who just found out he has a kid." The words stung more than Maya wanted to admit. She stepped back quietly before they noticed her and took the long way around to the nursing station. But as she turned the corner, she nearly collided with Marta. "Hey," Marta said, steadying her. "You okay?" Maya nodded automatically. "Just tired." Marta studied her, clearly not buying it. "People talk. That's what they do. I didn't take this job to win a popularity contest. I didn't take it to become gossip either," Maya replied, her voice low. "You took it to help kids, which is exactly what you're doing. Don't forget why you're here just because others forgot why they are," Marta said. Maya nodded, grateful. But the weight in her chest didn't lift. Back in room 14, Sophie was propped up on her pillow, a coloring book balanced on her knees. Nicholas sat in the corner, typing into his laptop with one hand while holding a juice box for her with the other. "Juice delivery," he said in a sing-song voice. Sophie giggled. "You're not funny, Daddy." Nicholas feigned hurt. "I'm hilarious. Ask Maya." Maya stepped in, smiling despite herself. "I'd rank you somewhere between dad joke and awkward uncle." Nicholas grinned. "Harsh crowd." Sophie held up her drawing. It was a shaky crayon version of her family, herself, Nicholas, a woman with curly hair labeled Maya, and Daisy the doll, enormous and smiling. Maya blinked. "Is that me?" "Of course," Sophie said. "You're part of our people now." Nicholas looked up. Their eyes met. A moment passed, unspoken, but understood. Maya bent down beside the bed. "You're quite the artist." "I had a good model," Sophie whispered and hugged her. Later that night, after Sophie had fallen asleep, Nicholas walked Maya to the staff elevator. "I heard there was trouble today," he said, not looking at her. Maya hesitated. "It's being handled. You shouldn't have to fight for doing the right thing." "I've fought for less," she said quietly, "and lost more." Nicholas turned to her then. His eyes, usually so controlled, had softened. "You remind me of my wife," he said suddenly. "She was the kind of person who didn't ask for permission to care. She just did it. Even when it made people uncomfortable." Maya didn't speak. "I lost her 3 years ago," he continued. "And ever since, I've been trying to fill the space she left. I thought if I worked enough, provided enough, maybe I wouldn't feel the hole." "She wouldn't want you to fill it," Maya said gently. "She'd want you to grow something new beside it." He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. As the elevator doors opened, he said, "Thank you for seeing Sophie, for really seeing her. Maya stepped in. Just before the doors closed, she looked at him and said, "She's easy to see if you're willing to look." The next day, tension simmered beneath the surface of the ward. Shelley had filed a second report, this time suggesting Maya be reassigned pending a full review. But something strange happened. Marta refused to co-sign it. So did two other senior nurses. Even the grumpy night janitor, Earl, who rarely spoke to anyone, left a note in the break room. "Maya treats people like they matter. Keep her." By noon, a quiet but firm resistance had formed. At the center of it, Maya remained focused. She didn't argue. She didn't campaign. She simply showed up on time, prepared, kind. That evening, Sophie had a mild fever, nothing alarming, but enough to make Nicholas uneasy. Maya checked her vitals twice, then sat by her side with a cool cloth, telling her stories about a girl who used to believe her doll could talk. Sophie, half drowsy, murmured, "Did she tell you secrets?" "Only the good kind," Maya whispered, "the ones that remind you who you are." Nicholas watched from the doorway, and something in him shifted, not all at once, but enough. That night, he made a call to his board, asking for a formal meeting with hospital administration. By the end of the week, Crane MedTech quietly expanded its pediatric funding grant with one condition: that no policy would ever discourage emotional care again. Maya didn't hear about the deal right away. She was too busy brushing Sophie's hair into a braid, whispering a new story, her voice low and steady, weaving hope into the quiet hush of the ward. And in the hallway, whispers changed, from doubt to admiration, from suspicion to respect, because some truths don't need announcements. They unfold quietly, one act of kindness at a time. The rain had eased into a misty drizzle by morning, the kind that clung to windows like breath and made everything outside seem a little softer. Inside the pediatric ward, though, the atmosphere had shifted. It wasn't just calm, it was lighter, as if something had been lifted. Maya noticed it in the way nurses smiled a little more genuinely, in the quiet nods passed between shifts, and in the way Shelley now passed her in the hallway with a tight-lipped neutral glance instead of the clipped stares of days before. Maya's shift started early. She liked the silence of the pre-dawn hours, the steady rhythm of preparation, the slow reawakening of the ward. She entered room 14 with a tray of breakfast options, but stopped short at the door. Sophie was already awake, Daisy tucked beneath her chin, watching cartoons on mute. The light from the television flickered against her face, but her smile was steady and real. She turned as Maya stepped in. "Hi, Mommy M," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Maya blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. "What did you just call me?" Sophie giggled, clearly delighted. "Mommy M, that's your superhero name." Maya set the tray down slowly. "Superhero, huh? I don't remember getting a cape." "You don't need one. You've got Daisy," Sophie said matter-of-factly. Maya's heart gave a small, startled lurch. It wasn't the first time a child had called her something out of affection. But this was different. This was personal. This was longing wrapped in love. Before she could respond, Nicholas stepped into the room holding a bouquet of small wildflowers, not store-bought, not wrapped in ribbon, just a paper cup full of color. His eyes met Maya's briefly, then flicked to Sophie. "Guess who made me stop the car to pick flowers this morning," he said. Sophie pointed at herself proudly. "He tried to drive past them. I told him Mommy M deserved flowers. Real ones." Nicholas looked momentarily thrown, but then he smiled, half sheepish, half touched. "She's been calling you that since yesterday." "I didn't know," Maya said quietly. "I didn't either until she told the security guard." He chuckled. He radioed upstairs to let Mommy M know her VIP was asking for snacks. Maya laughed, the sound surprised and rich. She took the flowers from him and placed them on the side table, adjusting the cup so they didn't tip. "I'll treasure these," she said. Nicholas nodded, but there was something unreadable behind his expression. Later that afternoon, during Sophie's physical therapy walk around the ward, Maya held her hand. They moved slowly, Sophie balancing carefully, her small hospital gown fluttering with each step. Her other hand clutched Daisy. Nicholas followed behind with a small camera, documenting each moment with the quiet reverence of someone trying to preserve something precious. When they returned to the room, Maya helped Sophie into bed and tucked the blanket around her. Sophie looked up. "Mommy M, can I ask you something?" Maya sat on the edge of the bed. "Of course." If I don't get better," Sophie whispered, "can you still be around Daddy? He's lonely." Maya froze. Her breath caught in her chest, and for a second she couldn't speak. Nicholas stepped forward quickly. "Sophie, sweetheart, you are getting better." Sophie didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on Maya. "Sometimes I think people get better because someone wants them to. But if I don't want Daddy to be alone again." Maya reached out, took her hand gently. "Hey, listen to me. You are strong, and you are going to come out of that surgery with flying colors, just like we planned. But no matter what happens, I promise you, he'll never be alone, and neither will you." Sophie nodded, satisfied, then leaned forward to whisper, "I think Daisy told me your magic." That night, after Sophie had fallen asleep and Nicholas had gone downstairs to answer a business call, Maya sat beside the window in the room, the soft beeping of the monitor steady. Outside, fog curled low across the parking lot, softening the city's edge. She watched Sophie sleep, the way her small chest rose and fell. The doll nestled close to her heart. Maya felt something deep within her chest begin to ache, but from a tenderness so sharp it almost hurt. She remembered her own childhood, being 7, then 8, then 10, and no one showing up. No visits, no hand to hold, only volunteers who rotated every few months, smiles that never stayed. This was different. She was staying. When Nicholas returned, he stood at the threshold for a long moment before stepping inside. "She's right, you know," he said, voice low. "About what?" Maya asked. "Your magic." Maya looked at him. "I'm just a nurse." "No," he said. "You're the first person in 3 years who made my daughter feel seen. And somehow, without asking for anything, you made me feel seen, too." Maya swallowed. "I don't know what to say to that." "You don't have to say anything." He sat down in the chair beside her. For a while, they sat in silence, watching Sophie sleep. "She called me Mommy M," Maya said after a long moment. "I'm not sure what to do with that." Nicholas looked at her. "Maybe nothing. Or maybe just keep showing up. That seems to be your superpower." Maya smiled faintly. "Does it scare you?" he asked. "What?" "The way she's drawn to you. The way He didn't finish the sentence, and the air suddenly thickened between them. "Yes," Maya said quietly. "It scares me, but maybe it should." He nodded. Sometimes the things that scare us the most are the ones worth holding on to. And in the hush of that hospital room, with a child dreaming peacefully and a doll guarding her sleep, Maya realized something. She wasn't just passing through this family's life. She was becoming part of it, one whisper at a time. Morning light spilled gently into the room, filtered through pale yellow curtains that danced softly in the winter breeze. Sophie sat upright in bed, her face still pale but eyes bright. Daisy was perched on the windowsill like a silent guardian, watching over the child who had already come so far. Maya entered with a chart in hand and a smile tugging at her lips. "You're early," Sophie chirped. "You're awake," Maya replied, pretending to sound surprised. "I thought I might find you snoring." "I don't snore," Sophie declared, then narrowed her eyes. "Do I?" Maya chuckled. "Not loud, just a cute little dragon purr." Sophie giggled. "Dragons don't purr, they roar." "Well, maybe you're part kitten, part dragon. A very rare species." Nicholas looked up from the armchair by the bed where he had fallen asleep fully clothed, his head resting on his fist. He rubbed his face, trying to gather himself, but his eyes never left Maya as she leaned over to check Sophie's vitals. There was something in his gaze that had changed over the last few days, softer, more open, as if he were finally willing to let the world into a place he had long kept sealed. Maya felt it. Even when she wasn't looking, Maya noted Sophie's temperature. "Looking good. You've stabilized." Does that mean no more poking? Sophie asked hopefully. We'll see, Maya teased. No promises. As Maya jotted something down on the clipboard, Sophie reached into a small folder on her bedside tray. She pulled out a folded paper and handed it to Maya. I drew something for you, she said shyly. Maya opened it slowly. Inside was a crayon drawing, a tall tree with a strong trunk, a little girl sitting beneath it holding a doll, and beside her, a woman with curly hair and a warm smile. The sun had a smile, too, and the sky was filled with birds. That's us, Sophie said proudly. Me and you and Daisy under the wish tree. Maya blinked, her throat tightening. What's the wish tree? Sophie tapped the paper. That's where I go in my head when I'm scared. Mommy used to take me there when she read bedtime stories. I hadn't been there in a long time, but I went last night. Maya knelt by the bed, her hand covering Sophie's gently. And I was there? Sophie nodded. You brought snacks and told jokes, and Daddy showed up with flowers. Nicholas chuckled behind them. Of course I did. The drawing was imperfect, childlike. But to Maya, it was a painting of healing, of acceptance, of something she hadn't dared believe in for a long time, belonging. Later that afternoon, Maya stepped outside to the hospital courtyard. The chill in the air was refreshing, clearing her thoughts. She found Marta sitting on a bench with her lunch. You've got that look, Marta said without looking up. What look? The one that says, my heart's full and I don't know what to do with it. Maya laughed quietly. She called me her wish tree. Marta raised an eyebrow. That's a new one. She draws these places in her head. Safe places. And somehow I ended up in one. You planted roots, Maya, Marta said. People notice that kind of thing, especially kids. They know who's real. There was a long pause between them. I'm scared, Maya admitted. Of what? Of getting too close, of what it'll cost if it all falls apart, Marta sipped her tea. That's the price of caring, but it's also the reward. Sometimes the thing that breaks you open is the same thing that helps you grow. That evening, Nicholas stood by Sophie's bedside while Maya adjusted the four. She's stronger, he said, his voice low. She's fighting, Maya replied. That's who she is. He hesitated, then asked, and you? Who are you? Maya looked at him, surprised. What do you mean? I mean, he searched for the words, you've become part of this. Not just for Sophie, for me, too. And I don't know how to say this without sounding like a complete fool, but I'm grateful. She didn't speak for a moment. The hum of the machines filled the space. I didn't plan for any of this, she finally said. I was just trying to help a little girl sleep. Nicholas stepped closer. You did more than that. You reminded me what presence feels like, what warmth is. Maya smiled gently. You reminded me what being seen feels like. Sophie stirred slightly, half awake, her hand reaching for Maya. Maya took it instinctively, stroking her fingers softly. Nicholas watched them in silence. And in that still moment, under the dim hospital lights, something unspoken passed between the three of them, not promises, not plans, but something rooted, like the base of a tree, something strong enough to weather the storm that was still to come. The surgical date loomed like a silent storm on the calendar, only 2 days away. The entire ward knew it. Nurses adjusted their tone when they walked into Sophie's room. Even Dr. Lin, usually all business and numbers, softened his voice when he reviewed the case. Everyone tread lightly, not out of fear, but out of reverence, the kind reserved for children who smiled in spite of pain. Maya had reviewed the schedule 4 times already that morning. She knew Sophie's prep routine by heart, when her blood work would be drawn, when the anesthesiologist would visit, when the surgeon would meet with Nicholas to sign the final consent. And still, she paced near the nurse's station, holding Sophie's chart, as if reading it one more time would somehow change what was ahead. Nicholas arrived earlier than usual, coffee in hand, his suit more casual than corporate. He wore a flannel over a black t-shirt and jeans, an outfit that made him look like a man, not a CEO. Maya, he said, catching her before she turned toward Sophie's room. She stopped. Morning. Is she awake? She is calm, actually. We did some deep breathing exercises this morning. Nicholas offered a quiet smile. She told me last night she's not afraid. Said her wish tree would be with her in the ore. Maya's throat tightened. She's braver than most adults I know. Oh. Nicholas reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. They emailed me the consent form for surgery. Said I could sign here or with Dr. Lin later today. Maya glanced at the form. Her fingers itched to reach for it, to smooth the fold, to make it something less permanent. Have you read it? I've read it, he replied, then hesitated. What I haven't read is what happens if it doesn't go well. Maya didn't flinch. Then we show up one moment at a time until we can't. Nicholas looked at her then deeply. That's what you've been doing all along, haven't you? She nodded. That's all we can do. He unfolded the form and signed it slowly. The pen hovered for a second before the final stroke. When it was done, he exhaled like someone who just released a 100-pound weight. That afternoon, Sophie had her final pre-op evaluation. Maya stayed by her side through the pokes and the measuring and the endless reminders. Nicholas sat nearby, reading aloud from a children's book, his voice a mix of distraction and comfort. When the room finally emptied, Sophie looked up at Maya. Will you be there when I go to sleep? Yes, Maya whispered. And when I wake up, I'll be waiting, she promised. Sophie reached out, touching Maya's wrist. And if I don't wake up, will you still talk to Daisy sometimes? Maya blinked hard. You're going to wake up, sweetheart? But if I don't, Sophie asked again, not with fear, but with sincerity. Maya nodded slowly. Then yes, I will talk to her, and I'll tell her stories about the bravest girl I ever met. Sophie smiled. You promise? I promise. Later, Maya found herself outside sitting on a bench near the staff lot, fingers trembling slightly from the weight of that conversation. Marta appeared beside her, holding out a thermos of tea. You look like you need this more than coffee, Marta said. Maya took it gratefully. She asked me if I'd talk to Daisy if she didn't make it. Marta didn't respond immediately. She's 8, Maya whispered. And she's preparing everyone else for her own surgery. She's not just brave, Marta said softly. She's extraordinary. Maya looked out at the horizon. The city glowed under a soft gray sky. What if I'm not strong enough? You are, Marta said. Because you stayed. Because you keep showing up. Back in the hospital, Nicholas had pulled Sophie onto his lap. They sat in the chair by the window, watching planes disappear into the clouds. He held her like she was made of glass and light. And Maya stood just outside the room, letting the moment be theirs. When Nicholas finally stepped into the hallway, he looked at Maya. She wants you in the prep room, he said. She asked the doctor. Maya's heart skipped. That's not standard. Neither is she. The next morning, Maya arrived before sunrise. Sophie's room was dimly lit, her belongings packed into a small canvas bag. Daisy was already tucked into the crook of her arm. Maya helped her into the gurney, fixing the blanket around her shoulders. Nicholas stood on the other side, holding Sophie's hand. The nurse came in to wheel her down the corridor. I'm ready, Sophie whispered, voice soft but steady. Maya leaned in. Your tree is waiting, and I'll be right there. Sophie nodded, eyes full of quiet knowing. As they rolled her away, Nicholas turned to Maya. I don't think I could do this without you. Maya placed her hand on his arm. You're doing it. You're showing up. That's what matters. And for the first time, Nicholas didn't answer with words. He just reached out and held her hand, not as a father or a CEO, but as a man who finally understood what it meant to not be alone. The operating room doors closed with a soft click, leaving behind a silence more deafening than any siren. Nicholas stood frozen for a moment, his hand still holding Maya's, his grip reluctant to let go. Maya gave it a gentle squeeze before finally stepping back, her voice calm but purposeful. "She's in the best hands," she said. "Dr. Lin has done this dozens of times." Nicholas nodded, though his face had drained of color. "But not with my daughter." Maya gestured to the waiting area, a quiet corner off the pediatric floor near a set of windows that overlooked a rooftop garden. "Come on, let's sit." They walked in silence. The chairs were stiff, covered in worn blue vinyl. The table in the middle held outdated magazines and a plastic container filled with puzzle pieces no one had touched in months. Nicholas sat down stiffly, fingers interlaced, elbows on his knees. Maya took the seat beside him but angled slightly toward him, offering presence without pressure. Minutes passed, then an hour. Nicholas broke the silence first. "She was born early, 5 weeks, tiny as a kitten." Maya turned to him, listening. "The NICU nurses called her a fighter. She came out pink and furious, screaming like she'd been robbed of time." Maya smiled faintly. "Sounds like Sophie. She was everything to her mom." Nicholas's voice softened. "When Ellie got sick, she made me promise no matter what happened, I wouldn't let Sophie feel the loss too deeply, that I'd fill the space." "And you tried?" Maya said gently. He looked at her, eyes glistening. "I failed." "No," she said. "You did the best you could with what you had. But grief is a full-time wait. You don't fill that kind of space. You learn to live beside it." Nicholas nodded slowly. "It wasn't until Sophie called you Mommy M that I realized. Maybe what she needed wasn't someone to fix everything. Maybe she just needed someone to see her." Maya looked out the window. "We all need that." The intercom buzzed softly. "Mr. Crane, please report to the surgical check-in desk." Nicholas stood immediately, but his legs wavered slightly. Maya rose beside him. "I'll come with you," she said. The woman at the desk greeted them with a warm smile. "Dr. Lin asked me to update you. The surgery is proceeding well. They've completed the valve reconstruction and are preparing to close." Nicholas exhaled, the tension in his shoulders visibly easing. "She's okay. She's stable," the woman assured. "The team will monitor her closely, but so far everything looks positive." Nicholas turned to Maya, his relief flooding through his posture. She made it through the worst part. Maya felt her own breath ease, though she hadn't even realized she'd been holding it. They returned to the waiting room. This time, Nicholas sat back, his body folding into the chair like a balloon slowly losing air. "I feel like I've been holding my breath for 3 years, he muttered. "Maybe now you can start to exhale," Maya said softly. He looked at her. "Really?" "Looked. I don't know how I'm supposed to thank you for everything." "You don't have to," she replied. "I didn't do it for thanks." He hesitated. "Why did you do it?" Maya thought for a moment. "Because someone once gave me a reason to believe people could show up when it matters. I guess I wanted to pass that on." Nicholas leaned forward, elbows on his knees again, but his voice steadier now. "What if I want to show up now? Not just for Sophie, for more." Maya met his eyes, her voice even. "Then do it. Show up. Not because you owe anyone, but because you choose to." An hour later, Dr. Lin appeared at the doorway. He looked tired, but pleased. "She's stable. The surgery went exactly as we hoped. We'll keep her sedated a little while longer, then begin post-op monitoring." Nicholas stood and shook the doctor's hand with fervent gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you for bringing my little girl back." Dr. Lin nodded, then turned to Maya. "She asked for you in recovery prep. Said her tree wouldn't be real without you there." Maya smiled. "Tell her I'll be there the moment she wakes." In the recovery room, Sophie lay pale but peaceful, tubes and machines quietly humming around her. Maya stood beside her, brushing her hand gently across Sophie's fingers. You did it, brave girl, she whispered. Nicholas stood on the other side, his eyes never leaving his daughter. Do you think she'll remember today? She might not remember the pain or the machines, Maya said. But she'll remember who was there, who held her hand, who stayed. Ah. Nicholas reached across his hand, meeting Maya's over Sophie's. Then let's stay. And there, in that quiet room filled with beeping monitors and soft breaths, something unspoken rooted even deeper, not just survival, but belonging, not just healing, but hope. And Maya, for the first time in a very long while, let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she was no longer on the outside looking in. The days that followed Sophie's surgery unfolded like a slow sunrise. She awoke groggy but coherent. Her first words a slurred but determined. Did Daisy make it? Maya laughed through her tears, assuring her that Daisy had never left her side. The staff brought in balloons, hand-drawn cards from other pediatric patients, and a hand-knit blanket from a retired nurse who had heard Sophie's story through the grapevine. Room 14 became a small sanctuary, not of suffering, but of gratitude. Nicholas barely left her side. He held her hand through the night, read stories from his phone, and even sang badly when Sophie requested a lullaby. The man who once scheduled his life down to the minute now measured his time and Sophie's breaths, her laughs, her steady pulse on the monitor. But it was Maya who orchestrated the rhythm of recovery. She anticipated Sophie's needs before she voiced them, calmed her when pain flared, and coaxed reluctant smiles with quiet jokes and warm hands. And more than that, she never treated Sophie like a fragile relic. She treated her like a warrior who had earned every scar. On the fourth morning post-op, Maya walked in with a small brown box. Sophie sat upright in bed, color slowly returning to her cheeks. What's that? Sophie asked, pointing. A surprise, Maya said, setting it down on the tray. But it's not from me. It's from someone who knew your mom. Nicholas looked up, startled. Can you, Ellie? Maya nodded, her expression unreadable. I didn't plan to say anything, but it felt right. Carefully, Maya opened the box. Inside were a stack of letters, their edges yellowed, the ink slightly faded. Sophie's name was written on the top envelope in looping cursive. Nicholas's breath caught. That's Ellie's handwriting. I was assigned to her floor during the final month, Maya said softly. She wrote these for Sophie, asked if someone would hold on to them until the right time. Nicholas stepped forward, his hands shaking as he picked up the top letter. She wanted her daughter to know her, even if only through words. Sophie looked between them, wide-eyed. Mommy wrote to me. Maya nodded. She wrote every day. Stories, advice, memories. I promised her I'd give them to you when it mattered most. Sophie clutched the envelope to her chest. Can we read one? Nicholas sat beside her, his eyes wet. We'll read them together, every word. Later that evening, long after the room had quieted and Sophie had fallen asleep with the letter tucked under her pillow, Nicholas found Maya in the staff lounge. You never told me, he said, his voice low. She asked me not to, Maya replied, her hands wrapped around a cup of chamomile tea. She said it would only be meaningful if it came when Sophie needed it most. Nicholas sat across from her. You didn't just care for my daughter. You carried my wife's legacy. Maya's gaze met his. I didn't want to overstep. You didn't, he said. You gave us something we didn't even know we'd lost. They sat in silence for a while, the kind that felt more like understanding than quiet. Do you believe in fate? He asked finally. Maya considered the question. I believe in timing and grace and people being in the right place when it matters. Nicholas smiled faintly. That sounds like fate to me. The next morning, Sophie requested that Maya be the one to help her walk down the hallway for the first time. With one arm around Maya and the other gripping her forepole, Sophie inched forward, determined. Everyone's watching, she whispered nervously. Then give them something worth seeing, Maya replied. With Nicholas filming from behind, Sophie reached the end of the hall to quiet applause from nearby nurses. She turned to Maya, eyes bright. I'm going to be a nurse like you one day. Maya knelt, touched. You'd be the best kind. The kind that knows what it feels like to be scared and brave at the same time. That afternoon, Marta approached Maya during her break. You've made ripples here, Marta said. Shell's been unusually quiet, by the way. Word is admins are reviewing policies around emotional care after Crane's call. Maya shook her head. That wasn't my intention. Maybe not, Marta said, but it's the effect. Maya glanced toward Sophie's room. If it means more kids get the kind of care they deserve, then I'm okay with a few ripples. That night, Nicholas and Maya sat side by side in Sophie's room. The child had fallen asleep mid-sentence, a letter half read in her lap. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, exhaustion softened by gratitude. She told me she wants to plant a tree when she gets out, he said. A real one. She wants it to be her own wish tree. Said it'll grow roots for all the days she didn't think she'd have. Maya smiled. Sounds like a beautiful start. She wants you to be there when she plants it. Maya looked over at him. And you? I can't imagine it without you, Nicholas said, voice raw. Not anymore. He reached for her hand, slower this time, no hesitation. And she didn't pull away. Outside, the city lights shimmered like stars that had fallen just close enough to touch. And inside that little hospital room, where grief had once been thick as fog, hope now bloomed quietly, steadily, like roots forming beneath soil not yet visible to the world, but strong enough to hold everything that came next. Spring arrived earlier than expected that year, brushing the city with soft pastels and the scent of new beginnings. It had been 3 weeks since Sophie's surgery. Her strength returned slowly, one determined step at a time, and so did her laughter, full, mischievous, and entirely contagious. She was officially cleared to be discharged that morning. Maya stood at the foot of Sophie's bed, helping her pack the last of her things. Nicholas was folding a tiny sweatshirt into a duffel bag, his movements unusually tender. Sophie sat up proudly, clutching a small plastic tree sapling in a pot. Today's the day. Are you sure you want to do it now? Nicholas asked gently. I promised, Sophie replied, looking at Maya. Maya smiled. Then let's go make good on that promise. The hospital staff gathered outside near the back garden where Sophie had chosen her spot weeks ago, close to a bench where patients sometimes watched the birds. A little patch of earth had been cleared, and a shovel stood ready. Nicholas had arranged everything down to the biodegradable ribbons that Sophie had wanted to tie around the sapling. Sophie stood between Maya and Nicholas, her small hands steadying the tree. Her pale face glowed in the sunlight, and her voice rang out with the clarity of someone much older than her years. This tree is for the days I didn't think I'd get, she said. For the people who stayed. For my mom, for Mommy M. There was a quiet murmur from the crowd. A few nurses wiped away tears. Marta stood near the back, arms crossed tightly, but her smile soft. Sophie turned to Maya and handed her the shovel. You start it. Maya hesitated, emotions brimming. She knelt, pressed the blade into the soil, and turned it over once, then again. Sophie reached down beside her, digging with both hands, not caring about the dirt under her nails. Nicholas knelt next. The three of them huddled together like a unit, like family. They placed the sapling in the ground. Sophie tied the green ribbon around the slender stem with slow precision. I want it to grow tall, she whispered. So people can see it from the windows. It will, Maya said. It already has roots. As the small ceremony ended, people slowly drifted back to their routines. But Nicholas, Maya, and Sophie stayed. You did something powerful today, Maya said. I just planted a tree, Sophie replied. No, Nicholas corrected. You planted hope. That's different. They walked back into the hospital, but not to stay. Sophie's paperwork was signed, her belongings packed. Nicholas signed the final discharge forms, and Maya reviewed them just as she always did, but this time with an ache in her chest. She wouldn't see Sophie's name on the board tomorrow. And yet, something about that felt right. It meant she'd healed. Outside the main entrance, a black sedan waited. Nicholas opened the door for Sophie as Maya helped her buckle in. Daisy the doll sat beside her, freshly cleaned and dressed in a tiny hospital gown someone had sewn as a farewell gift. Nicholas turned to Maya, unsure of what to say. "I don't think goodbye fits here." "It doesn't," Maya replied. "Not for this kind of bond." He hesitated. "We'll see you again. I promise." "I know." Before she could step away, Sophie rolled down the window. "Will you visit my tree?" Maya leaned in. "Every week, I'll tell it stories until you're old enough to come back and tell your own." Sophie smiled, her eyes shining. "Deal." The car pulled away, and Maya stood on the curb watching them disappear into the street, her heart full and broken all at once. Back in the ward, the day passed slowly. Maya completed her rounds, helped a new patient settle in, and checked in with Marta. "You okay?" Marta asked knowingly. "I'm full," Maya said, "like I've lived a whole lifetime in 3 weeks." You have," Marta said, "and she'll carry that for the rest of hers." That evening, after her shift ended, Maya walked back to the small tree. The earth was still soft around it, the ribbon fluttering gently in the wind. She sat on the bench nearby, closed her eyes, and breathed in the scent of spring. "I miss you already, brave girl," she whispered. She stayed there a long time, watching the sun dip low. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the final letter Ellie had written, addressed, not to Sophie, but to her. She unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "Maya, if you're reading this, it means you kept your promise. Thank you for giving my daughter what I can't. For showing up, for being the heart she could lean on. You're not just her nurse, you're her lighthouse. Take care of her and take care of you too. Love, Ellie." Maya folded the letter back, her hands trembling. She stood, brushed her palms together, and whispered to the tree. "I'll keep watching always." And as the first stars began to pierce the sky, Maya turned toward the hospital once more, her steps steady, her heart wide open. She had walked into this story expecting to serve. Instead, she had found a place she never thought she'd belong. A place where love, quiet, unexpected, and fiercely real, had taken root. 2 weeks had passed since Sophie's discharge. Spring bloomed more confidently now, trees flushing with soft green, and the hospital courtyard now felt like a garden touched by hope. The sapling Sophie had planted stood proudly in its corner, its ribbons still intact, fluttering gently in the morning breeze. Maya visited it every Wednesday. Sometimes she brought a book and read aloud, just a chapter or two. Sometimes she just sat in silence, letting the presence of the small tree remind her of things that couldn't be explained in charts or 4 bags. That morning, she brought coffee for Marta and found her reviewing files at the nurse's station. "You're early," Marta said without looking up. "Couldn't sleep," Maya admitted. "You still visit that tree every week." Marta smiled. "It suits you." That tree growing in the middle of concrete, refusing to be small. They sipped in silence for a moment before Marta spoke again, more serious now. "You heard the rumor?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "Administration's offering you a position permanent in pediatric care." Maya blinked. "What?" They saw the reports, the recovery metrics, the family satisfaction surveys. The call Nicholas made to the board didn't hurt either. He asked them why the woman who saved his daughter isn't on staff full-time. Maya looked down at her coffee, heart pounding. "I didn't save her." "You showed up when it mattered," Marta said. "That's a kind of saving." Later that day, Maya received a message from Nicholas. Just a simple line. "Lunch. Our place. Sophie insists." She hesitated only a second before replying, "Yes." The drive to their home felt like stepping into a different rhythm. The house stood on a quiet street, not ostentatious, but warm, with a wide porch and wind chimes that danced in the afternoon light. Sophie met her at the door, Daisy tucked under one arm and a sun hat crooked on her head. "You're late," Sophie teased, hands on her hips. "I'm 5 minutes early." "That's late when you're waiting for peanut butter cookies." Nicholas appeared behind her, apron on, flower on his cheek. Don't worry, she made me bake them. I've been under cookie arrest for an hour. Inside, the home smelled of cinnamon, sugar, and something tender Maya couldn't name. They sat together at the kitchen table, the kind that had seen homework, spilled juice, and now healing. Sophie beamed as she told stories about her new pen pal, saw their children recovering from heart surgeries that she had started writing to. I told them about you, she said proudly. They call you Nurse Supernova. Maya laughed. I'm going to need a cape soon. Nicholas watched the two of them with quiet wonder. Then, as Sophie disappeared to the living room to draw, he turned to Maya. She talks about you constantly. You've become part of her vocabulary of safety. Maya swallowed. That's a gift. I don't take it lightly. Nicholas hesitated, then pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, not jewelry, but something heavier in meaning. She wanted you to have this, he said. Inside was a gold locket. On one side, a photo of Sophie holding Daisy. On the other, the words, "Thank you for staying." Maya's fingers trembled as she traced the inscription. This is too much. No, Nicholas said quietly. It's not enough. You changed everything for her, for me. Their eyes met, and in the soft kitchen light, there was no need for grand declarations, just a shared breath, a quiet acknowledgement that something had formed between them, slowly, steadily, like roots beneath a tree. As Maya prepared to leave, Sophie ran up and hugged her tightly. I want you there for my school play, she whispered. And my birthday and maybe someday my wedding. Maya's throat tightened. That's a lot of invitations. Sophie grinned. You better start a calendar. On the drive home, Maya held the locket in her palm. The weight of it grounding her in something she hadn't let herself believe she could have, belonging. Back at the hospital the next day, Marta approached with a sealed envelope. Offer letter, she said. Permanent role, full benefits, pediatric floor. Maya took it slowly. They really want me here. They need you here, Marta corrected. There's a difference. Maya didn't open the envelope immediately. Instead, she slipped it into her bag and walked out to the courtyard. The little tree stood firm, leaves starting to stretch toward the sun. She sat on the bench beside it and pulled out the locket again, opening it, reading the words once more. Thank you for staying. And for the first time in a long time, Maya let herself dream about roots, about places not just passed through, but returned to, grown into. She looked up at the branches above and whispered, I think I'm ready to stay. Autumn arrived slowly, dressed in gold. Leaves tumbled like confetti through the streets. Children chased them with shrieks of laughter, and the wind carried the scent of change. It had been 6 months since the surgery, 6 months since Maya first walked into room 14 with her clipboard in quiet courage. And now, room 14 often stood empty, not from sorrow, but from healing. Maya stood at the window of the pediatric floor, watching Sophie and Nicholas emerge from the car below. Sophie ran ahead, her backpack bouncing, Daisy peeking from the side pocket. She waved at the building like it was a friend. Nicholas followed behind, no longer just a CEO, now unmistakably a father who had learned to move slower, to carry moments with both hands. Maya stepped away from the window as they entered the ward. Sophie burst through the door like a firework. Nurse Supernova. Maya turned, arms open just in time for Sophie to crash into her with a laugh. My favorite patient. I'm not a patient anymore, Sophie corrected. I'm the junior assistant of happiness. Nicholas entered, holding a small cooler. She insisted on bringing cupcakes for the staff. Fall flavors. I may have burned the first batch. Marta peeked from her station. If there's pumpkin spice, I might forgive the kid for making me cry at her discharge. Sophie grinned. Extra frosting just for you, Nurse Marta. The team gathered in the break room, nurses, orderlies, even Dr. Lin, who rarely joined group events. Sophie stood on a step stool to speak. I want to say thank you for saving me, for laughing with me, for letting me color your charts. Laughter filled the room. Nicholas rested his hand on Maya's shoulder. She planned this speech all week. She gets that from her mom, Maya whispered. After cupcakes and hugs and promises to visit often, Nicholas found Maya on the balcony. The breeze played with her curls, the sun catching in her eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked. She turned to him, her smile soft. "Of course." He pulled something from his coat pocket, a folded brochure. "What's this?" He handed it to her. It read, "The Ellie Crane Foundation, supporting pediatric heart recovery across the nation." Maya blinked. "You started a foundation." "We did," he said. "Sophie's idea. She wants kids like her to have someone like you. So, we're funding programs for post-op emotional care, training nurses, offering resources to families. It's what Ellie would have wanted, what we want." Maya stared at the words, her heart too full for speech. Nicholas continued, "There's a position for you, Director of Family Integration. It's flexible. You'd still be here with the kids, but also shaping something bigger." She looked up at him. "I never saw this coming." "I didn't either," he said. "But some things are meant to find you. Like Sophie, like you." They stood there quietly, wind curling around them, the city humming below. Later that evening, Maya returned to the tree. The leaves had begun to turn amber and rust. The ribbon Sophie had tied still fluttered, faded now, but firmly knotted. She knelt beside it and touched the trunk, remembering that first planting, that quiet promise. She whispered, "Look how far we've come." Footsteps approached. Sophie appeared with Nicholas behind her. She wore a scarf now, her hair longer, her cheeks pink from the wind. "Can we read a letter?" she asked. Maya pulled one from her bag, Ellie's final letter, unopened until now. Nicholas sat beside them on the bench. Maya began to read. "Dear Sophie, if you're hearing this, it means you've come through something hard. I want you to know that bravery doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, 'Try again tomorrow.'" Sophie leaned her head against Maya's shoulder. "You are surrounded by love. In every heartbeat, in every laugh, in every hand that holds yours, when the world feels heavy, and if you found someone who sees you, truly sees you, keep them close. That's the kind of love that stays." Maya's voice caught. Nicholas reached over, taking her hand. Sophie whispered, "That's you, both of you." Tears brimmed in Maya's eyes. She looked at Nicholas. "You've given me more than I ever thought I'd find again." "And you gave us a second chance," he replied. The three of them sat under the tree as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across their faces. In the quiet that followed, there was no need for more words. Love, like roots, had settled in deep. And this season, this beautiful, unexpected, life-affirming season, wasn't going anywhere. It was here to stay. The story reminds us that true healing goes beyond medicine. It's found in the quiet moments of presence, the courage to care, and the power of showing up when it matters most. Through Maya's compassion and Sophie's resilience, we learn that love has no boundaries. And sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come from those who simply choose to stay. It's a tribute to second chances, to unexpected family, and to the quiet, enduring strength of the human spirit, BUP. Stories. Voiceover ends.